Good evening, Baruchim Abayim Rabotai. Welcome to another edition of our Thursday night's class. It's nice to be back. 3 weeks. Wow, this was, I think, the longest stretch in 12 years that I wasn't here in a row. Last week, Baruch Hashem, it was because of a simcha, but at the same time, I missed the outside of the Zera Shimshon. I was very happy to listen to Rabbi Goldwasser's class afterwards. And an amazing thing, how the world is small. I went to visit a wonderful Jew that I befriended on Saturday night, and we were chit-chatting the first time I spoke to him in person. And he mentioned to me that his mitzvah in life is to spread the Zera Shimshon. So I told him, that's great. How do you do it? So he says he has a shiur 4 days a week, 5 minutes a day, recorded by Rabbi Goldwasser. And he has all these groups and whatever that he puts it on. I told him, that's so interesting. Thursday night, Rabbi Goldwasser spoke instead of me about the Zera Shimshon by the Yotze. So I saw a sign from Shamayim that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted the man who spreads the Zera Shimshon to have the zchut to continue spreading it on the night of the Yotze. That was nice to see. And tonight's class is sponsored by Flash Shlema of Ariel Ben Frida. Hashem should send all his problems to Sonei Israel. And happiness and health, Be'ezrat Hashem. B'toch shar Cholei Israel. Nu, we're in ELUL. Not only in ELUL, about a third way through. It's almost Shoshana. In Tammuz, we already spoke. The Tammuz is Rashi Tevot Zman Shuvah Memashmesh Ubah. So we went through the month of Tammuz, we went through the month of Av, and we're already a third of the way through the month of ELUL. So we got to do an expedited version of an achana for Yom Adin, a preparation for Judgment Day. And we daven to Hashem, la'adam ma'alchei lev u'ma'ashem la'anel Hashem. Hashem should give us the right words. That Be'ez Hashem should be a chizuk first and foremost for me who needs it more than everybody. And then if somebody else benefits, it's also okay. So you didn't get a good story in 3 weeks. So we got to start with a story. This is not credit to me. I'm going to give credit in advance to all those that have contributed to tonight's class. So the story that I'm going to say now comes from Chaim Walder, or Walder, I think they pronounce it in America, in a book that he put out called Nisim Mesaprim Al Atzmam. Great story. It's a pretty famous story. I've heard it before, but he has much more details than the way I heard it. Some of the other things that we're going to quote are from a sefer called Mekarvan La Torah, that are speeches that were said by Rabbi Aaron Toisig, Hashem Yishmereh V'Chael, a rabbi that I love very dearly and have a great relationship with, in his volume on Slichot. And some of the stories I'm going to mention throughout the class come from a video that a friend of mine in Lakewood sent me this week from a Sephardic rabbi in Israel named Rabbi Yosef Mugrabi, who has phenomenal Torah and recently Pozim put out some Sfarim for him, which are great as well. And Acharon Chaviv, my dear friend Rabbi Aaron Levi, who I don't go 24 hours except for Shabbat without listening to online. So his 8-minute clip, which he calls the 4-minute clip on the Parsha in Hebrew today, also inspired a lot of what I'm going to say. So that was Davar B'Shem Omro. These are the places where I got my material for tonight for, and I believe in giving credit to where credit's due. And this week, more than ever, I believe in giving credit to where credit's due. Not that I needed to believe more because Chazal say to do it, but I was listening to a speech that somebody sent me a link to, of a very famous speaker, and I'm obviously not going to say a name. And it literally was word for word a speech that I gave here 4 weeks ago. But literally. And there was no mention, not that I needed to mention my name, but there was no mention of anything. To the point that in that speech 4 weeks ago, I misquoted a Gemara. I didn't misquote the Gemara, but I said it was on Daf Yudchet Amud Aleph instead of Yudchet Amud Bet, and he also said it was Daf Yudchet Amud Aleph and not Yudchet Amud Bet. I mean, he didn't even care enough to look it up. That it went to that point. It went to that extreme. He repeated the mistake literally. Like that's how far the detail went, and it a little bit bothered me. I'm not going to lie to you. Not that he didn't give me credit. I don't need the credit because it wasn't mine. I took it from other people that I said clearly in that speech who I took it for. But why couldn't you give credit to the Sfarim that I took it from? Like, what's the embarrassment to say? I looked at a good sefer. I heard a good story. Why do you have to play the game that is yours? Elamai, there must be such a test. There must be such a test in the world to show off what you're not. So, Dafka, when I felt it live, I feel that it's extremely important to be Merigu Lala Olam and to make sure that we don't forget to quote exactly where we get everything from and how. And Adrabah, for me it's a big honor to say that nothing I say is mine. And I say that all the time. Because I had the zchut for many years I was very young, a young child, to off and on hear Rav Shalom Shladron live. When he came to America, to Mendel Hoffman, and other times as well. Chavron Yeshiva B'Sof Yamav, in certain situations. And Rav Shalom used to always say that he doesn't say a word from himself, and in Yiddish he would say, Ich bin nur ein Iberzogel, I'm only one who says over. He's like, as if I say my own, so who says it's true? But if I say over, he used to quote mainly Rabbi Lapian and Chatzkel Abramsky and others. Those were the two main ones. And he said, if I say over, I know it's true. So yeah, I clearly disclaim, Ich bin nur ein Iberzogel, I don't say anything for myself. Everything has a source. And that's why I, in advance, wanted to say where everything came from, so I shouldn't forget. So now let's go on a journey. So Chaim Wilder brings down a great story. 15 years ago, this is the way he brings it down. This is the book that was written this year, so I'm going to go with exactly the way he brings it down, even though I have a few details a little differently. So 15 years ago, there was a gentleman who was a college student in Israel and a father of 4. And he wasn't feeling well, and from doctor to doctor, and finally they got down to the bottom of it. And the bottom of it wasn't pleasant news. His liver was failing, and they had a clear diagnosis of why, and also a clear assessment that they don't have a solution for it. Now those are all a bunch of factors that nobody should ever need to experience, because that's the beginning of an end. I have an uncle, Zecher Tzadik Levacha, Rav Yaakov Yagen, a legend of Chesed of the past generation, one of the greatest Machzikei Torah ever, who, from the time he was diagnosed with a liver problem to the time he was in Gan Eden, was less than a week. It's something that's not taken lightly in the medical world. So in Israel, there's a very known doctor who even has a unit in a hospital that's named after him, Tul Kaspa, in Hadassah, and he's considered the number one guru in this area. So they went to him to see if he has any solutions. And he said he doesn't have a solution, but the closest thing to a solution he has is he's going to put him on a list for a liver transplant. And as soon as there's any possibility anywhere in the world for a liver transplant, he's going to be medevac to wherever it is, and that's the only thing that could save his life. And the clock is running against him. This man is very well connected. B'siyata d'shmaya, it took less than a week, and he gets a phone call from an affiliate hospital in London saying they got the ability to give this gentleman a liver transplant. They got the right thing, the match. And now there's a very small time window between the time that you're able to do the transplant to the time that the liver is not worth anything, that you can't do it anymore. I don't know the exact medical numbers, but it's a very small window of time. Immediately they go to the patient who was hospitalized, this college student, and they say, we're going to make all the preps for your medical flight. You're going to fly on a private plane with doctors and whatever it takes, and machinery. And we hope to have you ready for the flight within a few hours, because that window is, the clock is ticking. There's not much time left. And they start the preparations. When they start the preparations for his transport to the United Kingdom, sitting near him were 2 people, his father and one of his brothers. He had many brothers, but one of his brothers was sitting there. And his father looks at the brother and says, the doctor said it could take 5-6 hours to make the preparations. If that's the case, that gives me time to go somewhere. You stay with your brother while they make the preparations. I'm going to go run to somewhere I have to go. I'm going to come back and we'll fly together with our brother. The brother looked at it like it was funny. Oh, your son's in critical condition. Finally, there's what are you doing? It was very weird, the whole thing. But okay, the father said, he's leaving. Gotta see what to do. And he leaves. He leaves, and where does he go to? He goes to the Kotel. What was so important about the Kotel then? What was important about the Kotel? He goes to the Kotel. Look at the Siyata D'Shmaya. Kotel im lo a'ale et Yerushalayim al rosh simchati. You see a sign from Shamayim, it's not stam. He goes to the Kotel, maybe Hashem sending us a sign that before Rosh Hashanah it's good to see the walls of the Kotel and cry a little bit, though we should have a good year with the whole Klal Yisrael. And he goes to the Kotel, he sits down and he's reading Tehillim, parak after parak, b'dmaut shalish. You know, the pages couldn't absorb the amount of tears. A father with a son, a father of 4 kids, a grandfather of 4 grandchildren that's in critical condition, that his life depends on a flight to the mercy of doctors in London for a transplant to succeed, with a lot of room for error along the way. It's a terrible, tragic situation nobody should ever need to know. Terrible, tragic situation. And over there he prays and whatever it is, and at a certain point he leaves, and he comes back to the hospital. And when he comes back to the hospital, his son tells him like this, that while he was away, and they were preparing him for the flight and whatever, there was some very positive movement on the monitors that were monitoring this patient. But the doctors that were taking care of him said, it's nothing, it's just because they're giving him different medications and making the preps or whatever. They didn't make anything out of it. But the son tells his father, Dad, I don't know, maybe they're just being negligent, because there should be, it looks like there's a very big change to the good. The father says, listen, I'm not a doctor, but let's see. And while they're talking, again, they see that they're paying attention and everything looks suddenly stable, the way it didn't look for a few days before that. So the father was a stubborn guy, and he said he's not going to let the doctors play around with his kid. And he goes into this professor who's the head of the department over there, his office, and he tells him, sir, your doctors that work for you are negligent. They don't want to take my son seriously. I'm telling you, everything looks 100 times better. Something's weird, something's different. Could you come check? So the professor tells him like this, really, the answer is no. He says, they're my students, I trust them, this is what we do all day. I'm going to come check just because it's a sensitivity to you. So you shouldn't think that I was negligent. But there's nothing to check. Your son's in terrible shape, don't live in disillusions, I don't believe in miracles, things don't change, and he didn't suddenly get better. He needs a transplant that every second that we're wasting here talking is less of a chance that he'll be able to get, and his life is at risk. This is not right. The father insists, come, and he comes. He comes into the room, and he starts looking at the monitors and looking at the records of the past couple of hours. And he's like, starting to shy out the doctor. When doctors shy out, that's a good sign. He tells the father, I don't know what to tell you. Yeah. He sends everybody out of the room except for one of his assistants, and he says he's going to start from scratch and do a whole bunch of new thorough tests, even though it makes no sense, because again, if he loses the window of time, there's no transplant. But I guess he was confident enough that it's worth the risk. And he does what he has to do, and then he comes out of the room 15 minutes later and he tells the father, listen, I'm canceling his transplant. It actually looks like his problem is starting to get better. And if that's the case, a transplant's a high-risk procedure that there's no need for. And we could heal him here in Israel just through medication. So we're going to start treating him right now. He said, but how did you know? You're not a doctor. What made you come into my office and fight with me to come check him when everything was scheduled and everything was so clear-cut? What changed in your brain? And the father tells the doctor, listen, do what you got to do. Take care of my son, stabilize him, make sure everything's okay. And then give me 15 minutes of your time and I'll tell you exactly what happened. Fine. The professor does what he has to do. And then he calls the father. And the father says, I'm coming into your room. I need 15 minutes. Sure. He says, I have all the time in the world for this one. And he tells him a story. He says, I was born in 1940 in Mexico City. Religion in 1940 in Mexico was less than religion in a Reformed temple in New York today. It was nothing. They were traditional. There were Syrian Jews that were very traditional. But traditional or nothing is about the same. Because what's important, they don't keep. What's not important, they keep. Somebody can make a mixed wedding, but want to make a chuppah in the afternoon because the Bukharian tradition is Ayin Hara or whatever. The biggest Ayin Hara is to make a mixed wedding. Hashem's eyes are right on your wedding. What are you doing? Tradition is what destroyed the world. That's why Minhag is the same letters as Gehenom. The tradition sends you straight to hell. It's a one-way ticket. Stop with your tradition. Stick to Shulchan Aruch. The Beit Yosef was also traditional. And he wrote a Shulchan Aruch to stick to, not that your traditions. Nobody cares about your traditions. I'm not saying, Minhag does have a place in Halakha when it has sources of hundreds and hundreds of years ago, and that's the only reason why ladies make Birkat Torah, by the way, is because of a Minhag. Nahagu, the two rights. It was a custom, even though technically it's against Halakha. And we still go with the Minhag against Halakha. But that was a Minhag of 1,000 years ago, at the times of the Rishonim, not today's Minhag. No. So he tells the doctor, tefillah, he says some people kept some Shabbos, some people kept put on tefillin, but it wasn't real, it was very superficial level, whatever they had left over from Syria still. And in Syria, of course, they were Tzadikei Elyon, but it got watered down over the years as they moved to different countries and different times that they moved to different parts of the world. Chaim Tzion Levi, Zecher Tzadik V'Kadosh Livracha, the chief rabbi of Panama, he wrote his own biography, kind of, because he didn't want people to write stupid things about him, make up stories. So he writes to the community in his biography about himself that when you brought me here and you made me a welcome feast, this is for the rabbi that they brought from Israel, Chamavad Yischaruta, from Porat Yosef, Gaon Olam, Inu Torah, like Chamavad, it was unreal. One of the greatest sages ever. And he says, by the welcoming meal that you brought me to, you served basar v'chalav, you served meat and cheese together. They brought a rabbi from Israel, from Porat Yosef, and served cheeseburgers. That's what he writes to the community. And he says, and imagine I would have yelled at you, you would have ran away from me, and instead I brought you close with love, and look, today we built already a whole community, and Bnei Torah, and Kolel, and Yeshivot, and Machzikei Torah, and all these other great deeds that they did. Unbelievable thing. But anyway, so he says that, the situation wasn't so good. He said, I was 15 years old. It's already 1955. That was already the state of Israel, to the good and the bad. And everybody knew, Israel, Jews, it was like synonymous. So I wanted to go to Israel for a visit to see what Israel's like. This was before Birthright and Rage and I forgot what Lori Plotnick's group is called, the women one that goes to Israel and all these other wonderful things. This was swim right. You went on a boat pretty much. 1955, there were flights, but it was multiple flights. And you had to pray hard. They said Tfilat HaDerech with a lot of kavanah back then. And no, I wanted to go. My parents were open-minded and they had a few bucks. And they agreed that I should go. And being that it was a long travel, even with the flights and everything to get there, so it wasn't you went for a day and came back like today. They agreed that I should go for 3 weeks. And they told me, go for 3 weeks, with the travel it's 4 weeks, whatever, and come back. So I went. He said I went, and I went to the Kotel, and I went to other places, and I started realizing what it means to be a real Jew. And I met Jews that were Shomrei Torah Mitzvot Kedat V'Kadin, the way Hashem wants it to be. And I was blown away. I said, wait a second. My life is like a knockoff Louis Vuitton. I have knockoff Judaism. I have some fake version. Here's the real deal. And then I was exposed to yeshiva. And I went into the yeshiva. It was Porat Yosef. And I learned for the first time in my life. And I loved it. And I said to myself, Po eshev ki vitia, here's where I'm going to stay. This is where I want to be. Now what do? So I started sending messages to my parents, gently hinting to them that I'm staying in Israel. So they thought it was just a fad, a teenage fad. Yeah, it's going to pass. So they said, okay, you want to stay instead of 3 weeks, 3 months. 3 months. Again, he started manipulating. Another few months. Till one day he told his parents straight out, it is what it is. I'm staying. I love it here. Here I feel like I belong. In Mexico I have nothing. Now they felt like they lost their child. To some people, we should never know. It's sad to say that such a thing exists. They'd prefer their kid drop dead than become religious. Literally. To them, if a kid becomes Shomer Torah and Mitzvot, it's like a death sentence almost. One mother told me that she lost her child because of me. I said, how'd you lose your child? He said, he went to Israel to learn in yeshiva. I said, I hope to lose all my children to learn in yeshivot in Israel. I pray for that every day. And I hope to have the zchut to lose myself to go learn in yeshiva again in Israel like I used to. That's what we pray 3 times a day. I said, are you stupid that you lost your child? So let me tell you about losing children. Those who are not going to Israel to yeshiva, and are on the college campuses shooting up and overdosing and ending up dead if nobody was there to give them Narcan in time, that's the way to lose a child. And we lost way too many this year that way. You lost your child to yeshiva, what's wrong with you? But she's not a bad person, she doesn't know better. And the same thing with his parents, they were amazing people, they just didn't know better. Nobody taught them the value of Torah. And Torah in Eretz Yisrael has so much more value. No. Kids after 3 years, the parents decided they're coming to Israel, he's already 18, to tell him the joke's over, he's coming back to work in the business, he used to be in the SY community, we never went to college, and today people have to be educated, but then it wasn't like that. He went to your dad's business. And Baruch Hashem, they all did fine. Well, most of them at least. So his father came to Israel to let him know the facts. You either come back and you join the family business and whatever, or you should know my son, this is what he tells him, if you stay here, you're on your own. No money from us, no help from us, no nothing from us, you're on your own. You do your own thing. We're done with you. We're done. Because 3 years, you went for 3 weeks, it's been 3 years, enough is enough. He said, and he had so much patience, so much pressure on him, that he felt that he might break. More than that, there was a family event in Israel around the same time his parents came. So his brothers also came from Mexico. And other family members, cousins and whatever, they all came for this event. Talking about 1958. And he saw his whole family. And naturally, he misses them. He loves his family. So when his parents were putting pressure, the timing was also good. Because that's when his heart was open to the idea of going back to his family. And he didn't know what to do. He said he was by this wedding. And it's, he saw he was breaking. He left. And this is what he did. He tells the doctor. So they went running to the kotel. And we went running to the kotel, and I took some to Tehillim, and I prayed to God that He should give me the strength to withstand the test. And even after praying, I felt I was still going to fail. I said, if I'm going to fail, what's going to be over here? I said, so what I did was, I put my hand on the wall of the kotel, and I made a shvuah, I swore. I swore in God's name that until my 120, I'm never going to leave Israel. Now to swear, people are scared to mess with. I see a lot of times in shiurim, especially with Israelis, at the end of the shiur, I'll tell a guy, no, give me a hand, you're going to start keeping Shabbat from this week. He tells me, bli neder. I tell him, idiot. A neder is a parasha in the Torah, and a Gemara, Masechet Nedarim. The same Gemara, Masechet Nidar says, before you were born, you didn't make a neder, you made a shvuah to God, you swore to God that you're going to be a tzaddik and not a rasha. So you're telling me, bli neder, you're a confused soul. If a neder means something, so Shabbat means a lot more. And if a neder means nothing, so what are you saying bli neder for? Bli neder. Bli neder doesn't help you. You made a shvuah already before you were born that you're going to keep the Torah. Hey tzaddik v'lo rasha, you swore to God that you're going to be a righteous person. No. So he made a shvuah by the kotel, he's not leaving Israel. Comes back to his parents. Now he's strong. His parents tell him, come back. No, we're going to write you off. Write me off. Back with you. They leave without the kid and they cut him off. No money, no nothing. And he's on his own. Another little while goes by, Pshat Tavai meets a nice girl, and they're going to get married in Israel. And he notifies his parents, if you want to come to my wedding, you're welcome. Chavod Gadol. You're more than welcome to do it. If you don't want to come, I can't force you, but I would like you to come. This is the date, this is the time, this is the hall, and you promised you're not going to help me, so don't worry, it won't cost you any money. The Rosh Shiva already took care of it. He raised the money. I'll get married without you, it'll be fine. No, the parents come to the wedding. And they were exposed to something that they never seen before. A wedding of Bnei Torah. A wedding where people dance not because they need the other person to look at them, or what the other person's going to say about them, but because they dance because they actually want to be doing mitzvah, being mesameach chatan vekala. There's no ulterior motives. A wedding that the songs that are played are words of kedusha, not some drug addict singer that's going to end up dying of an overdose one day, or somebody who's tattooed from head to toe because the body that Hashem gave him or her wasn't good enough. Avdil elef afei avdalot. Words of Kodesh, they go to the neshama in a proper way. A wedding where Gdolei Yisrael are present instead of celebrities. Where those who are idle to those who are wise and experienced and productive members of society, not those who happen to have big followings on Instagram, la'avdil. And there is such a concept, Hetzitz v'nivga, you see something holy and it hits you in a good way. And it went into their hearts. Not only that, they see the boy's popular, he has friends, he's loved by everybody. The girl comes from a good family, has unbelievable character traits. Instead of her looking at these in-laws like they're the craziest people that wrote their kid off, she respects them and she's nice to them and they're blown away. They're like, this we didn't see, this we didn't know. This is the side of the Orthodox community that we were never aware of. One of our most tragic situations in the Orthodox world today, which is probably the core of all the crises we have in the community combined, is that we're terrible at public relations. If only we would learn the public relations situation to explain the world what we are instead of what we aren't, everything would look different. Because it would affect our attitude to everything. Because suddenly we're good people, and we're positive people, and we're happy people. I have a brother-in-law who made an observation 2 weeks ago, Friday night, when he was buying for Shabbat. He's a therapist, social worker, I don't know, whatever, one of those titles. But he's in it for the right reasons, for a change. And he tells me an interesting thing. He said that he doesn't think that it's a technology crisis or this crisis or that crisis of why boys are going off the derech. He doesn't think so. He thinks it's a lot deeper than that. I said, what do you think it is? Tell me a wild thing. It says, fathers raise their kids aggressively. They don't have patience for them. They yell at them, they punish them, they threaten them. And everybody's saying, what? Nobody does that. Liars, you do. Your kid doesn't go to sleep at night, he's 5 years old. You yell at him? Go to bed already? That's all it takes. You destroyed the kid for life. You murdered him forever. Gone. Could put up a matzeva, ponitman, here he was buried. Over one word, that's all it takes. So they have no patience. Kid comes Friday night, he wants to say Dvar Torah by the table, but he doesn't really know it. Instead of helping him and making him feel like he did know it, the father says, what, you didn't listen in class this week? You just murdered your own child. Just murdered your own child. A boy told me on Monday afternoon this week, the boy is now 22 years old, called me up on the phone to say thank you. I said, thank you for what? I don't know you at all. So I love thank yous. It makes me feel good. It strokes my ego. But for what? At least tell me why. He said, because 6 years ago you saved my life. I said, who are you? I don't know what you're talking about. He says, you don't know me. I don't know you. But now I'm getting married. So I'm calling to invite you to my wedding. Because I feel that I owe you my life. I said, why do you feel you owe me your life? He said, I'm going to tell you why. Because I was in high school and I was a learning disabled boy. And I used to struggle greatly with all my studies. And I would fail my tests, and even with all the extra help and the curriculums and this and all the wonderful things that we have, So I would fail. And I always felt like a failure. And my parents used to always yell at me, try harder, this, that, the other. One day, their whole attitude to me changed 180 degrees. So normally when I would fail a test, instead of whatever it is, a 65 they have to get, so I would get like a 50. But half I knew. He said, one day, I got on a test, a 0. 100 questions, not one right. How is that statistically possible? I don't understand, because multiple choice. Even if he guessed them all, statistically he should have had at least one right. He had 0. At that point, the teacher thought that he was smart and sends a teenage boy, a 16-year-old boy, home with the test and a letter to the parents, pretty much saying, your son is so reckless that there's no possible way that he failed because of learning struggles. This was deliberate to mock the system, and he's unappreciative, and this and that and the other, and he has a one-way ticket out of the school pretty much. That's roughly what they said. And he said, my parents, I came home and I gave it to them, because honestly I didn't care. I had nothing to lose at that point. I was like, it is what it is, tough luck. He said, and I knew deep down I didn't do anything purposely. How's it possible? I don't know until today. But it is what it is. I failed. No, now what? But besides, everybody knew I had it hard. It was hard for me to concentrate. It was hard for me to remember anything. What other people did in a minute, it took me a whole day's work. He said, and my parents, I was expecting to hear a whole mouthful from them and whatnot. And suddenly I hear the opposite extreme. My father takes the piece of paper that had a big 0 on the top, and he pulls out a pen. And he sticks in front of the 0, another 0, and then a 1. And he writes on the bottom of it, my son to me is always 100%, and signs his name. And says, go take this back to your teacher tomorrow. He said, and I was shocked. I was expecting the regular lecture. What are you doing? You don't care. You're reckless. You're this, you're that. But I didn't say anything. I was happy. I got away with murder over here. I still didn't know how my teacher would respond. I went back to school the next day. I gave it to my teacher. He said, and I was blessed with a teacher that even though he made terrible mistakes with me, was also an honest man. And he looked at me and he said, come, let me help you with the test. Let's retake it together. And that was the first time I felt that maybe I can do something right in my life. He said the years went by, and I started doing better academically and started succeeding. And he said when I was 19 years old, I wanted to go to Israel for Shana Aleph, to yeshiva. My parents were very nervous about sending me, and they ended up agreeing. And when they ended up agreeing, my mother told me why. She said there's this young guy, who they call him a rabbi on YouTube, who I watch, who gives these classes that are insane, that talk about taking kids that are holding by 0 and calling them 100. And he inspired us to change our entire attitude with you, and we realized our mistake, and it worked. You're doing so much better. To the point that we called him to ask him if he thinks we should send you to Israel. He encouraged it strongly. He even took responsibility that he's going to get you into yeshiva and make sure everything works out and you have the structure that you need. And he wishes you the best of luck. This is what she tells his son. And he said, I asked her for a name. She gave me a name. And I always said, one day I'm going to reach out to you to say thank you for saving my life. But I never did it because I pushed it off. I was embarrassed, whatever. I said, what am I going to tell you? I was an idiot once upon a time, and thank God my parents were pretty much idiots too, and you made them normal, and that's why I stood a chance. Like, what was I going to tell you exactly? So now that I'm getting married in a couple of days, I would have never married a Rav Yaakov girl. I'm continuing in Koil, and I would have never got to where I got to. I just want to tell you that sometimes adding 10 before a 0 can save a life. This is what the boy told me on the phone on Monday. I told him it's not coincidental. There's a reason why my initials are Yud Yud, 10-10. Because we have to give 1 10 to you and 1 10 to the female gender, and each one should take all their zeros and turn them into hundreds, and that's the way to succeed. It's an unbelievable thing. But nobody's exposed to this. These secular Jews in Israel that are going on a hate campaign against the Orthodox world for the elections this coming Tuesday, which, by the way, we all have to pray, literally pray, say Tehillim, that Hashem should protect the Torah Yisrael and Am Yisrael, and that the Orthodox Jewish parties like Shas and Yadut Torah, not like, the only two Orthodox Jewish parties, Shas and Yadut Torah, should be successful, and that Avigdor Lieberman and his friends have the biggest fall ever. The biggest fall ever, in every way, shape, and form. It'll be the biggest Kiddush Hashem, Bezrat Hashem. But somebody who runs a hate campaign against Orthodox Judaism, that's Hashem says about him, Le'yoveh Hashem sloach lo. There's no way to forgive. There's no forgiveness for such a thing. We hope Hashem should make a nes. It should be a nes for ELUL. It'll be a chizuk for Klal Yisrael. That we should see clearly that their whole hate doesn't help. Now, I don't blame the people for buying into the hate. They don't know better. They were never exposed. You know how many times in my life I took people, secular Jews, to Chevron Yeshiva, to Ponevezh Yeshiva, and they started crying by the door. They were like, why didn't we know that these people are so beautiful? Because all they were done is 24 hours a day. And the TV channels poisoned, that they're parasites, they don't serve in the army, they don't. Nobody ever told them they do. They just don't know better. And this guy's parents was the same way. He's by the wedding. He's amazed. Shabbat Chatan, amazed. By Sudah Shlishit Shabbat Chatan, the father of the boy, the one that cut him off and fought him for 3 years, or more than 3 years at that point, gets up and says he wants to speak. And he pulls out a piece of paper and he's going to read a speech off a piece of paper, and he starts crying and he can't get words out of his mouth. Finally, he calms down a little bit and he gets words out of his mouth, and the words that he gets out of his mouth are the words that Rabbi Elazar ben Hurkanus at the beginning of Pirkei Rabbi Elazar that we learned together in classes in the past, so we won't repeat. But Rabbi Elazar ben Hurkanus was 28 years old. He wanted to go learn. His father didn't let. The whole famous story. Until it got to the point that he realized what a great person Rabbi Elazar ben Hurkanus became against what he thought, and he heard about him the words Ashreichem Avraham Yitzchak v'Yaakov shiyatzah zeh michalatzeichem. Lucky are you, Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, that you had a great-grandchild, Rabbi Elazar ben Hurkanus. And at that point, not only did his father not write him off from everything, he flipped it around. He said, everything I took away from you, I give you, plus compensate you. I give you so much more. And he reads this Ma'amar Chazal that I guess somebody helped him find or something. And he says, a few years ago, we wrote you off from the family because you didn't want to come back from Israel to Mexico to help us in the business. But your brothers and I all agree after what we experienced now over the wedding and the Sheva B'Chodim, when we got to realize is going on, that not only you're not written off, stay in Israel, learn, do what you got to do, we support you, and as a compensation gift, we bought you a house. We're going to give you the keys after Shabbat, fully paid, that you should be able to have security here in Israel and live comfortably. They bought him a house in Yerushalayim. Amazing thing, right? And he's telling this to the doctor. The doctor's looking at him like, what does this have to do with anything? You're telling me how you became religious? And he says, when you tell me my son has to go to London, he has to go through a liver transplant, I went to the Kotel, and I read Tehillim, and I cried to Hashem, and I said, Ribono Shel Olam, almost 40 years ago, when my life was at stake, my spiritual life, I came to this wall and I read Tehillim and I cried the same thing. And then I put my hand on the wall and I swore that I would never leave Israel. And an hour from now I'm going to have to leave Israel. I have to break my promise to you, God. Because unfortunately, my kid is... But I don't want to break that promise, God. And the same way when you promise something good, you don't change your mind. If I promise something good, don't make me change my promise. And I left the Kotel. And when I left the Kotel, in my heart, I felt that there's no doubt that God can disappoint me, and my son is going to be better. And I won't have to leave Israel. And the doctor looks at him and tells him, now I understand. Your son will be better. I don't doubt it. I don't doubt it. To make a long story short, 3 weeks later, 3.5 weeks later, something like that, the kid was 100% healthy. This college student, the father of 4, was 100% healthy. And he went back to his house. And many years later, over 50 years later, this man is a very old man. His name is Rabbi Yosef Zayat. And he's one of the Gedolei Israel who sits and learns Torah day and night as if he's a young college student nonstop. Amazing thing. I make a promise. Over here I'm going to sit, I'm not going to leave Eretz Yisrael. And Zorei Tzedakot Matzmiach Yeshuot. That tzedakah went and brought him the Yeshua that saved his kid's life years later. But we're not done. Some of you heard the name, maybe you know what I'm about to say. You know who this family is? So let me tell you a little bit about this family. You ever heard of a Talmud Torah in Israel called Shtilei Zeitim? The best Sephardic Talmud Torah that produced all the great Sephardi rabbis of the last many, many years. That's another brother that promised that he's never going to help his brother, that followed his brother's suit and came to Israel. You know the yeshiva called Yisodot that puts out all the great Talmidei Chachamim? That's another Rav Zayat, another brother who moved to Israel who promised. In short, all the brothers and the father all moved to Israel. Another brother, by the way, opened up Mishkinot HaRoim, another great yeshiva, a high school, amazing yeshiva, one of the best. All the top yeshivot that the Sfaradim have, all the Talmidei Chachamim of today's generation came through this family, the Zayat family. They get credit for, straight across the board, all of them. Their Talmud Torah, their yeshiva Ktana, their yeshiva Gdolah put out all the giants. It's an amazing thing. Besides the two others that are not, the three others, I think, actually, that passed away already, they were also in Eretz Yisrael and Gdolei Yisrael. All from a decision of a boy that in a moment of truth goes to the Kotel and says, I'm here, and I have nowhere to budge for, and nothing to do. And look how Hashem put it in his mind, the right thing to do at the right time, in order for it to pay off many years later. An amazing thing. I call tonight's for you a miraculous year. Even though it sounds kind of weird, because Al Pi Halacha you're not allowed to pray for miracles. What's the solution? If we can convert a miracle into something that's not considered a miracle anymore, if we can be masveh nes with teva, we can mask the miracle with natural causes, then we can convert a year, the upcoming year, into a miraculous year. So now we have to strategically figure out how do we do that, and we can walk away with something that can be priceless. So let's do a short journey and see what we can come up with. So, I'm sure all of us are well aware of a very known experiment in psychology that was called the Stanford marshmallow experiment. At the beginning of the 1960s, Professor Mitchell decided that he wants to. Everybody's looking at me like I fell off the moon. Come on. This you learned in high school in 10th grade, if you're in the state of New York. Yeah, it was in your curriculum. You were even tested on it. Yeah. 10th grade. No 10th graders here? But anyway, yeah, that was the name of the study. The Stanford Marshmallow Experiment. Professor Mitchell did a very simple thing. It was the beginning of the 1960s. He went and he took a group of kids and he wanted to make an experiment who's going to be more successful in life. They were very young children, and there's a whole book about this also. It's called The Marshmallow Experiment. And which is not only about what he did, it's all the counter-arguments throughout the years later on. And he gave them 3 different things throughout time: marshmallows, some other candy, and pretzels, which I guess were the 3 hot items by kids in the 60s. And he gave them a choice. You can either have 1 now, or if you wait 15 minutes, you can have 2. Some chose this, some chose that. Actually, the vast majority chose to wait the 15 minutes and have 2, surprisingly. In the millennial world, this wouldn't work. They would say, I'll take a half, but I'll steal it. I'll get it on government benefits. But yeah, that's the way it was. And he later on followed these kids as they grew up, and he saw that the children that chose to wait 15 minutes and take 2 were drastically more successful in life in 5 main areas, but the number 1 area that he followed was academically, but financially and even trivial things like their BMI was much better and healthier, and everything about their life was better. And he concluded that the ability to have patience and sustain your desire for the sake of greater return later on is what makes you successful. That's the formula of success in life. A bunch of years later, they did another study. These are students of his, actually, that went to contradict the Rebbe. And what they did was, they did a much larger study that was based on children from different socioeconomic backgrounds. And they followed them just based on their backgrounds to see which ones grew up more successful. And they found that those who grew up in higher cultured areas and wealthier families and whatever had the same 5 benefits in drastic numbers higher across the board. That's the millennial case of the underprivileged. And they came up with some conclusion, arguing on their Rebbe, that it must be that the factors of your environment that you grow up in are much greater than your ability of self-control. Today there's a new study that, by the way, contradicts both of those, because the highest drug rate, overdose abuse level in certain states, not in all states, but in specific states in the US, and 6 that we know of for sure, is actually amongst the wealthiest and the most privileged kids. Because if anything, the more privileged you are, the more depressed you are, because you have nothing to live for. So now we're totally confused, and thank God there was enough confusion about the subject, so they were able to put out a few books. In the 80s they put out one, recently they put out another. They're all called marshmallow experiments. First print, second print, third print, each time it changes based on the new research. So which one's right according to the Torah? What is the formula to be successful? It's a question, right? So, this was Rav Aaron Levy's clip this week. Brilliant. If we look in the parasha, we see the answer. Ki teitzei lamilchama lo yivecha, right? When we go out to war. Tano Hashem elokecha biyadecha, v'shavita shivyo, you took a captive. V'raita b'shiva eshet yifat toa. The Torah is a parasha about the eshet yifat toa. A person went to war, had a prisoner of war that was a beautiful goya, and now he wants to marry her. But he's Jewish, he's not allowed to marry a goya. And we don't believe in fake conversions either. So the Torah says, yeah, there's a way you can marry her. Take her to your house, and there's whatever criteria of what she has to do. Wait 30 days, and then if you still want to marry her, marry her. That's what it says. Wait a second. I want to go back for a second. Go back to the previous parasha. It talks about the criteria of going to war. Who were the soldiers in the times of the Torah? So, the Kohen would come and make an announcement. Anybody who got married in the past year should go home. All the good-looking guys were gone. Anybody who planted a vineyard in the past year and didn't have fruits yet, didn't get his fruit, should go home. All the successful businessmen were gone. A vineyard is just a symbolic thing of business. Somebody who built a new house and didn't live in it yet, didn't move in, should go home. No, the real estate guys are all gone now. And then, if that wasn't enough, we already lost all the handsome and all the 6-packs and all of this and all the 12-pack. They're all gone. Who's left over there? So a couple of, lo yutzlachs. People that couldn't do anything. But we're not done yet. If somebody's scared that he has any sin, and what's any sin? Chazal say, Rashi brings down. Sach ben tefillin shel yad l'sharosh, that maybe once in his life he had a hefsek between putting on the tefillin shel yad and tefillin sharosh. A sin that many of us are not even aware that that's a sin. Yeilech v'yashuv lebeito, go home. Why? Because your sins could take the whole war down. Could take everybody down. Who left? Everybody left. So who were the soldiers that were there? The two Gdolei Israel. In today's world, we would say maybe Reb Chaim Kanievsky and Reb Gershon Edelstein. That's who was left. And they went to war. By the way, in the time of the Briskerov lived near Chovan V'im over there, and right before Kikara Davidka. And across the street from him, they built the first theater in Yerushalayim. Out of all places in Yerushalayim, they built the first theater across the street from the Biskurov's house, L'Avdil Min HaTumah L'Tara. It was called Kolnoa Edison. If you want to hear a wild story about the Nevuah of the Biskurov, everybody, they made riots against it and whatever, because it was an area of religious people, like, why are you putting it in our face? But the Biskurov didn't make a big deal out of it. So they once asked the Biskurov, Dafka, you're the biggest Kanai, you should make the biggest deal out of it. So he said, no, they didn't need the biggest favor in the world. What are you talking about? So they said, what favor? To put a theater across the street from your house? They said, yeah. They said, what's the favor? He said, the Gemara teaches us that the theaters are going to become batei midrashot. He said, so some people are going to have a base medrash that's going to be a block away from their house. By me, it's going to be across the street. And not down a base medrash, big, beautiful building. What's the nevuah? 60-something years after he said that, Edison was already closed for many years. The building stayed empty. Satmar, out of all Hasidus, has bought it. And soon is becoming a big Satmar yeshiva. It's the Bishkov's nevuah. It's unbelievable. We didn't even have to wait for Mashiach. Otherwise, Mashiach will come before it opens. I don't think it's open yet. But it's an amazing thing. No. So these were the people that stayed. So they once went to the Bishkirov. In Edison, they put out a movie about the Bishkirov. What was the movie? It was making fun of the religious. They look at the religious laws of how a military is supposed to look. And then they had a picture of the Bishkirov and the Chazon Ish. Those were the two left over, two old men bent over their canes. And like, this is what's supposed to win the war. And the contrast was all these videos of all the Israeli soldiers and whatever they had back then, and what, of all their power and might that they thought they had. And when the Bishkirov heard this, everybody thought he would get upset. And again, he didn't get upset, he started laughing, he was so happy. He said, what are you happy about now? What a chilul Hashem. He said, they're idiots. They didn't end off the story. Just tell them to fix the movie to end off the story. And them with all their tanks, they lose the wars. And us two old men with our canes, we won every single war. So that they forgot to say. It was the Bishkirov with his sharpness. He always knew how to turn something into the right way. So, wait a second. So, Ki tetzei lamilchama, who's going out to the war? The Bishkirov and the Chazon Ish, right? The Gdolei Olam. On these Gdolei Olam, we say they saw a good-looking girl and they're bringing her home. How does that make sense to you? Have you thought about that? Isn't that wild? If we said it about a teenage boy today, fine, but on those the greatest sages, and we're not talking about the Bishkirov and the Chazon Ish, we're talking about the times of the Mishkan, the times of Milchemet Mitzvah, the Beit Mikdash, we're talking about thousands of years ago, 2,000 years ago plus. And those Gdolei Olam that the Gemara says that we can't even relate to what they were. We have no idea how great they were. We say that they went out to war and they saw some good-looking girl and brought her home. And these are called the tzaddikim. Imagine today, they would tell you about your friend. He went out to the city one night, he saw some goya, he brought her home, he waited a month and he married her. You would say, what? The guy's out of control. He's an animal. And this is the Torah. I said, Parashah in the Torah. Happens to be, it never happened, but in theory it could have happened. Why is the Torah giving us a commandment about such a situation? It doesn't happen. But even if it does happen, what's the Torah trying to say with this? And the answer is the Torah is giving us exactly the answer to the marshmallow experiment. Torah is saying, yeah, tzaddikim have Yetzer Hara too. Not only do they have Yetzer Hara, kol hagadol mechavero, somebody who's greater than his friend, yitzchol gadol heimenu, they have a bigger Yetzer Hara. Acher, Elisha ben Abuya, right, all the stories in the Gemara, Menashe, people that were great, great giants in Torah, and then they went out with Talmud Ra, Rameir's Rebbe. You don't have more than that. Rameir Balanes's Rebbe, we spoke about it. So what's the difference? What makes one a failure, a Rasha Gamur, and the other one a Tzaddik Gamur that's not a Yarei V'levach Levav, he's not scared of any sin. He has 0 sins. What's the difference between this one and that one? One difference. Why does the Torah say, U'bachta et avia v'ima yerach yamim, she should cry for a month, that she left her family? You know why? Because sometimes the way to save a person's life is not by telling him what to do. Because his Yetzer Hara is so big that you're going to lose that. He's not going to be able to control himself. Just buy time. I'll prove it to you. I'm sure all of us by now, after all we spoke about it, don't get angry. It's hard for me to believe that any of us would get upset. But there are some people out there in the world that still get upset, believe it or not. And if somebody's about to get upset, and he says, you know what, I'm going to get upset. Not only am I going to get so angry, I'm going to yell and scream and curse and break and do all the terrible things in the world. But I'm not going to do it now. I'm going to wait an hour. In an hour, I'm going to get angry. An hour later, is he going to get angry anymore? It's over. It's done. Even if he waits 2 seconds, he's not getting angry. When mothers tell kids, take a deep breath, I want to tell them, look in the mirror. Maybe you take a deep breath before you yell at your kid every 2 seconds. Take a deep breath, just buy yourself 3 seconds, and now there's nothing to fight about. For some reason, all problems in the world are solved in a matter of a minute. If we could just buy that 1 minute time. It's when we respond on impulse and on instinct, that's when we make all the mistakes and everything fails. Comes the Torah and says, when a person's at war, the Yetzer Hara is very big. And even the greatest tzaddik could have the Yetzer Hara to be with a goya, Hashem Yirachem. But, so we can't hold you accountable for that. What do we hold you accountable for? Don't act on your impulse. Take her home, wait a month, and if in a month you still want it, then go do it. Who's the one who's successful? Not the one who's never going to sin. Everybody's going to sin. The one who's going to postpone his sins. The one who's going to push off his sins a little bit. You want to go do something stupid? Do it. But not now. Tomorrow. By the time tomorrow comes, you're not going to do it anymore. It's over. But if you say, I'm not going to do it, the Yetzer Hara is going to say, wait and see how you're going to do it. He knows how to manipulate the system very well. So over here there's an Eitzah Amuka, a great piece of deep advice. A great, great piece of deep advice. And which one is right on the marshmallow experiment based on this? Both are right. Number one, you'll be more successful if you have the patience to prolong, to get a better benefit. But number two, your environment that you're in, when you're in war, you can't make clear judgment. When you're home, you could make clear judgment. They're both right. They're both contributing factors. And that's why in Pirkei Avot, Chazal clearly tell us, be careful from a shachen ra. Make sure Knei lecha chaver, you have a good friend, and Aseh lecha rav, you have good mentors. Because they're all factors that contribute to your success in life. That's the whole idea of a minyan, by the way. That even if you're not worthy for your prayers to go up between the 10 of you, if somebody got some mitzvah that's going to get the prayers up. And if it's a synagogue that has a parking lot that's open on Shabbat, so the halavai, they should close down. Because those prayers don't even get to the ceiling. Forget about the heaven. Many years ago, I had the zchut to be thrown out of a bunch of shuls. Not allowed to speak there because I said this. It was considered extreme. Torah says, M'chaleh amot yumat. The guy drives to shul and gets the aliyah that says, M'chaleh amot yumat. I never figured that out. Why'd you drive? To get a curse? What'd you do it for? It makes no sense. It makes no sense. But okay. I had a frightening story. This was 16 years ago. I'm not going to say names of towns because the president of that shul is no longer alive. Hashem should put him in Gan Eden. He was a nice man. It was a shul that wasn't officially Orthodox. They were like confused. One day conservative, one day Orthodox. They were back and forth. The rabbi was Orthodox, but and the president was not affiliated at all. I don't even know what his story was. He was an interesting man. But he used to like me. And he would beg me to come speak. Always try to bribe me with this, with that. Come speak. So I used to go speak. And then once he brought me to speak the night before Rosh Hashanah. It was a huge shul. 500 seats, I think. 600 seats, I don't know how many seats. Beautiful shul also. And normally when I would speak, so I don't know, 200 maybe were full. But the room looks empty when there's that many seats. The night before Rosh Hashanah, it was mobbed. There wasn't a place to put a needle in there. They were sitting on the stairs between the chairs. They were like, oh my God, wherever you could. And I spoke. I didn't know the whole dynamics of the shul. I came very innocently. I really didn't have an agenda. I gave a nice speech. But in the speech I said that if Chazan or Rosh Hashanah Kippur is a person that's not Shomer Negiyah, then his prayers, it would be better they shouldn't pray. Because he's not only hurting his prayers, he's hurting the whole shul's prayers. And if the people that get aliyot on Shana Kippur, their wives and daughters wear pants, it would also be better that they shouldn't get aliyot because they stopped the Torah from protecting also. Here's what I said. And one girl got up and yelled some words that I can't repeat in a shul and stormed out. It turns out it was the vice president's daughter. And that was the last time I was allowed into that shul. What's the scary thing? What's the scary thing? The president of the shul is not alive anymore. And I say this with a lot of pain. Hashem should put him in Gan Eden. And I'm not saying there's any link between the two. I sure hope there isn't. But he died in a car accident on the way to pick up his daughter from fashion school, clothing fashion school in Manhattan, where she was studying to become a designer of clothing. The vice president, not the president. That's the way he lost his life. A few months later, it was a tragic story. Crazy story. The Baruch Hu says, "Al tiguvim shichai." What are you doing? Don't fight with my Torah. What are you stupid for? You don't want to keep, it's bad enough. But you don't have to lahachis go against. And don't lahachis be in a contradiction in everything in life. Don't kill. Everybody has Eitzah. Everybody sins. Today, everybody's Kodesh Nishbun and Anusim. I say it all the time. But at least lahachis not. That much we don't have to do. The disciple Zecher Tzadik Livracha, when he was in Siberia, Rav Yaakov Galinsky says this over, and it's also written in the Sefer called Lahagid from Rav Yaakov Galinsky. So he was a soldier, he had to be a guard, whatever. So one Friday night he had to be a guard, and there was no coats there. There was only one coat, and every shift, the guy from the previous shift would give the coat to the guy from the next shift. He came a couple of minutes late. The guy from the previous shift didn't want to wait outside, so he took the coat and he hung it up on a tree. We left it on a tree and left. When the stipler came, he wanted to put on the coat, but a tree is muktzah on Shabbat. To take off a tree from a coat is an issur d'Rabbanan, a muktzah. Now in Siberia, on 40 Celsius below zero, of course you're allowed to do it, it's pikuach nefesh. But the stipler didn't do it. And the next morning, he came back and he was alive and healthy. And it makes no sense. Medically, he should have been dead from frostbites alone. Rav Yaakov Galinsky was with him. And he asked him how that he lived, okay, maybe a nes happened because he was shomer mitzvah, whatever, the schus of Shabbat, whatever it is. He says, you were wrong, by the way, but he doesn't understand how he was physically able to control himself not to take the coat. Just from the pain of frostbites and whatever. So the disciple told him, I'll tell you exactly. I never stood outside all night. He said, what do you mean? You were a guard all night. So I never did it. He said, that's impossible. He said, you couldn't disappear because you would have been killed. So you wouldn't be able to say the story. He said, when I got there, I said, I'm going to take the coat. But not now in 2 minutes. And in 2 minutes, I said 2 more minutes. In 2 minutes, I said 2 more minutes. And I split the whole 8 hours into 2 minutes each. In 2 minutes, I was able to hold out. 2 more minutes, I was able to hold out. That's the difference between the stipler and somebody else who fails. If you say, I'm going to wait 2 more minutes to control myself, then at the end you succeed, because 2 minutes and 2 minutes and 2 minutes, and it works. But if you say, yeah, I'm going to be the biggest tzaddik in the world, that's Vasel Satan Machareinu. In 3 seconds you become the devil himself. That's the difference. That's the key to success over here. Now let's take it a step further. In Halakha it says, before Kippur, we'll talk about this again in a much more serious context, that even somebody who doesn't eat pat takum a whole year, who eats pat takum a whole year, and I said Yemei Tshuva, he shouldn't eat pat takum. And of course everybody asks, what is a joke? 10 days a year you play holy? It's like slichot, right? 40 days, everybody goes to slichot, yeah? And then like business back to usual. Sometimes the way they come dressed to slichot, I don't understand how you say chatana when you're dressed like a sin. How does that work? Can you tell somebody I love you and stab them at the same time? How does that work? It doesn't make sense. The whole thing makes no sense. But okay, at least they say slichot. No. So what is the game? 10 days? So there's all different pshatim. Every year we say another pshat. This year I want to say a big chidush that I think is based on this yisod. No, it's not 10 days. What the halakha is telling you is how you're going to be a Jew that's going to keep mitzvot the right way. Start with 10 days. You survive 10 days, not the end of the world. 10 more days. Also not the end of the world. 10 more days. Like this. My father, Hashem send him a long life, taught me, and I tried this hundreds, thousands of times, and it works so amazingly with people. He says, if you want to get somebody to start keeping Shabbat, never tell them start keeping Shabbat. It's going to fail. Say, come to me one Shabbat. And that Shabbat, don't use your phone. Just one. Give him a good time. He'll realize he could survive. The next week, get him invited to another friend. Do that 3-4 weeks in a row. It becomes a routine and he likes it already. You don't have to convince him. You don't have to talk to him. You don't have to seminar. Nothing. No speeches. It's going to work. Amazing. Now let's give us the kill. So we figure out how we could turn a nes into teva and walk away with a miraculous year. The Tefillah Shlomo Radam says an unbelievable thing. It's from Moadim Kabbalat Shabbat. This is not my knowledge. I got this Tefillah Shlomo from, I told you, from Aaron Toisik in the Sefer called Mekarvan LaTorah on page 219. So he quotes over there, the Pasuk says in Daniel, Perak Tet Pasuk Zayin, L'cha Hashem HaTzdaka v'lanu boshet hapanim. Which literally means, you God are the righteous one, and we are embarrassed. But he explains, the Chachamim learn, Gemara Masech Beitzad Aflam Bet Amud Bet, Mi shemitzupe mitzapeh l'shulchan achirim, olam chashach ba'ado. That's the idea of the Gemara. It's based on Yerushalmi, by the way, in Olah. What does that mean? If somebody lo aleinu can't support himself, he has to depend on others to support him, and he has to wait to see if they're going to send him the help that he needs or not. Olamo chashach ba'ado, he lives a very sad, dark, depressed, miserable life. Hashem Yirachem, we should never know what it feels like. Hashem Yirachem. And there's one whose whole life has been given to tzedakah v'chesed, let me tell you. With all the chesed and tzedakah that we do, I always say, some people would think, great, they can come into Rosh Hashanah and say, look how many people help. It's not a drop in the bucket, because who knows how many people had to wait for the help that they needed, and during that time Hashem was angry why they had to wait, and how many people were worried that they won't get it, and even though we came through at the end, but that time of worry made them so sick that there's no way back from, they're traumatized, and we should never know. From one tragedy to the next we deal with. Should never know, really never know. If you want to understand an example that could be mamchish, so this rabbi that I said I'm going to quote, Rav Mugrabi, so somebody sent me a clip, 3 stories, I don't have time to say all 3, because we went way over time, but whatever, I'm making up 3 weeks. I have some guilty feelings about 1 week at least, because it's ELUL and that, so I'm torn a little bit. But anyway, and I got to say, I said a while ago that I'm stopping to say long shiurim because somebody complained. After that, I got like an outpour of emails. Literally, I think I stopped counting at 173, so I don't know how many more there were after that. Of people emailing, what are you talking about? This is the only thing that we learn the whole week. If it's a little longer, at least we learned something. If not, I got like the counter argument, so now I'm torn. So hopefully maybe starting next week there'll be 2 shiurim a week or something like that I'll post. There's many shiurim a week, Baruch Hashem, but I just don't post them. Maybe I'll post this one short one and one long one, so everybody will choose what they like. But one way, excuse me, one way or the other. So this Rav Mugrabi quotes in this video that somebody sent me a story, amazing story. One of the great rabbis, the Nahodik Rebbe, I think it was. He was known as a big Ohev Yisrael. So he had some medical condition. He had to go through a medical treatment. And then, the kids, what happened was, back then medicine wasn't like today. It was a little primitive, to put it mildly. And they had to do some tests before they gave the person the treatment to see if he'll be able to withstand the treatment. Some treatments people can't withstand, and the treatment alone kills the patient. Until today, we have treatments like that. Sometimes chemo is worse than cancer, well, they know. We should never know. And Hashem should send all the Cholei Yisrael with cancer and flush them out tonight still. And that Iranian lunatic who keeps on threatening Israel should get all the cancer in the world tonight already. Together with a few others that help him. But one way or the other, he said, so the way this test that they would do is they would take a piece of steel and they would stick it into fire, make it hot, and they would touch the guy for like a second, not even a second. Hashem Yirachem. To burn, we should never know. If he was able to withstand it without completely passing out, so then they would do the same thing again, reheat it, but for like a drop longer. If he withstood it, they knew he could pass the test. And in theory, they would have tried a third time, but the doctors never believed that somebody would be able to withstand a third time, so they never even tried. And it was known that even by the first time, everybody, either passed out or was screaming and yelling, whatever it is. Kitzer, they did it to him the first time, he doesn't move, as if nothing happened. Second time, also nothing. Third, then they tried the third. Third, doesn't move, doesn't scream, doesn't budge, like pain-free. So they went to him afterwards, they said, Rebbe, you made out of something else? It's humanly impossible. You should have been jumping to the sky or passing out, God knows what. It's physically impossible, it makes no sense. How could it be? So he said, what are you talking about? In pain, there's a rule that the more pain you are exposed to, the more immune you are to pain. You build up a higher pain tolerance, it's called. If somebody never had a toothache, the tiniest drop of a toothache makes him crazy, he's in bed for 3 weeks. But if somebody had a toothache and couldn't get an appointment for a few days, but the second day, didn't get better, it hurts just as much. But he already got used to it, so he could tolerate it a tiny drop more. It still hurts like crazy, but a tiny drop more he could tolerate. There is such a thing. People get used to a situation of pain. It's called building up a pain tolerance. He said, I'm used to much worse levels of pain than this. So this is a baby game to me. It doesn't do anything to me. So I told him, Rebbe, there's no worse pain than this in the world. What's worse than this in the world? He said, I'll tell you what's worse. When a Jew comes to me to ask me for a favor, he needs help for something, and I don't have it to give it to him. The suffering that I have then makes this feel like it's zero. Chavzayin Ov, I had the chutz to be in Tosh for a few days, but I touched Rebbe's Yetzai, Zecher Tzadik Kadosh Levacha, a great, great man that I had the privilege to be close to for a long time. And to actually take care of, not just be close to. And I want to promote something tonight to the camera. A beautiful book that came out from by Art Scroll a few weeks ago for the Yetzai, called the Tasha Rebbe. If you want the greatest Musa Sefer that I think you could possibly read before Rosh Hashanah, $22, it could be yours in the local Judaica store. I don't have any to sell you, sorry. And but that's what I paid for mine. And go pick it up. I'm telling you, this is literally the biggest Musa Sefer that you could read before Rosh Hashanah. And it's all stories, and we love stories, right? It's just to see what it means, a man who cared about the Jewish nation. Last Friday night, by davening, Rabbi Spiegel, the Rav of a shul in my neighborhood, an amazing, amazing man, told me a good feeling. It's of course not pshat, but it's a good feeling anyway. It's a remez, we'll call it. Chazal say, Rachmana liba bai, Hashem needs your heart. So with Pashtut, what it really means is Hashem wants to see how much kavana, how much intention, how much intent you have behind every mitzvah that you do. He told me that he thinks al derech haremes we could say more than that. When HaKadosh Baruch Hu looks at somebody, he doesn't look at the technicalities always how many mitzvot and averot he has. He looks how much heart he has, how sympathetic he is to other Jews, how much he cares, how much he's willing to help, how much he's willing to do, how much he's willing to sacrifice for himself for the sake for others. Achmana, what does Hashem really need? Liba bai. The Tasha Rebbe was the ultimate liba bai, the man in the legacy of our generation, of a person who is kol kulo kodesh, and his whole thing was a heart for others. There was never something like this before. It was a phenomenon, total phenomenon. So anyway, this Rebbe said, when I have a person, a Yid, that comes to me to be Moshiach, and I don't have a way to help him, the pain that I have then is so much greater than all the other pain. Unbelievable thing. And that's why we have to be aware, and we have to do whatever we can to do to help everybody as quick as we can, in the best way we can, the most respected way we can, always. And Baruch Hashem, we built up a young generation of kids to do that non-stop, and I'm sure Hashem has been that big nachat and shamayim from it. I don't doubt it. I don't doubt it. But anyway, so the Rebbe from Radamsk in Tiferet Shlomo, and with this I end, said an amazing thing. If somebody does you a favor, a big favor, on one hand you're happy, you needed it. On the other hand, it's na'amad de kisufa, right? Like the Zohar says. Or Yerushalmi really said it, but the Zohar afterwards explained it more. It's a little bit embarrassing. You had to take a favor from somebody, you wish you could do it on your own. Even though you got it all wrong, Hashem made the world purposely. The people should need each other. Nobody could do life on his own. And whoever thought he could was an idiot and failed. Hashem says, Lo tov ve'yot adam levado. A person will not be able to do it alone. And you think you could do it alone? It doesn't work like that. But the mice, it's uncomfortable. Now, it feels uncomfortable. Now let's imagine you're driving down the highway, you have a flat tire. You change your tire, you don't know how to. I have experience with that. Now I have run flats for that reason. But that's even worse because, that can't be fixed and sometimes, and your car doesn't have a spare, so you normally end up needing a flatbed. But one way or the other, you're on the highway, got a flat tire. You want to change your tire, you don't know how to. You call AAA or whatever, roadside assistance, they always tell you 3-hour wait. By that time, there could be no you and no car and no nothing. What 3-hour wait? You're sitting on the side of a highway. And the guy pulls up behind you. I'll help you. So on one hand, you're very happy. On the other hand, see a guy coming out with a dress normally and that, a high-class guy, a nice person, a fancy car. You feel uncomfortable also. Like, this guy's some big banker, a lawyer, a doctor, I don't know what, and he's busy changing my tire for me. So you have mixed feelings. So what are you going to do? You're going to take his name and number, you're going to try at least. So you're sending them flowers to his house for the weekend, the chocolates, I don't know what. You're not doing it for him. You're doing it for you. So you should feel a little more comfortable with the situation at least. But now imagine this. You got a flat tire on the side of the highway, nobody's stopping. But not only that, you were in the car with the heat on because it was the winter. You ran out of gas and now you're freezing on top of it. So now it's really dangerous. So you get out of the car and you start waving. Hopefully that way somebody will stop. In Israel, there was a guy, this is a true story. I know the people involved. Rav Yaakov said this over in a speech, and he told me who the people involved were, because I said this one's too good to be true. And he said there was a guy on the side of the highway who got stuck. I don't know if it was a tire or something else. And he came out, and in Israel, it's a law that besides your registration, this and that, you have to have what's called an ephod zahov, I don't know, a yellow thing, whatever. Besides the insurance registration, you have to have one of those vests, those neon vests, with the safety thing. So in case you pull over, they should be able to, because in Israel, tragically, there were tons of people that died from people hitting them when they pull over on the side of the road. So it's a law, you have to have that in your car. So there was a guy who had that, and he was out, and a frum Jew, a Hasidic Jew, pulls up behind him, and helps him out, whatever he needed. I don't know if it was a flat or a battery, or something went wrong with his car, nothing serious. And this guy in 2 minutes fixed it for him. And fine. When he was ready to get back into the car, the Hasidic guy realizes that this gentleman takes off his safety vest, and he also takes off his kippah. And he folds them both, sticks it into a pouch, and is coming to drive off. That pissed him off already. He was like, hey, what's that about? Not that he wouldn't help a non-religious Jew, it was just weird to him. So he goes running to the window, he knocks on him and says, dude, why'd you take off your kippah? He said, because I need lo dati, I'm not religious. He said, so why were you wearing a kippah? He says, I was wearing a kippah because if I stand on the side of the road without wearing a kippah, nobody stops for me. If I stand on the side of the road wearing a kippah, in 3 seconds, 20 people stop.
Yeah, sure. That's true. Oh, gosh.
Now it sounds like a nice story, but in a way it's an embarrassing story because a Jew's a Jew and we should stop for everybody. But one way or the other, this is what he said. Rav Yaakov said it over. I told him this story is too crazy to be true. He gave me the people. He says, listen, this is who it is. You can find out who they are. 100%. It's a thing. They say in America, so I said this over once in a speech, and a different rabbi who was speaking after me told me that in America, the goyim that do this, that they have kippahs for emergency's sake, If they need a favor, if they this, if they that, they have a kippah to put on, and they know that that's the way it works. In the subway station, there are people like that. The drug addicts are asking for money or whatever. They put on a kippah because they think they'll get more money that way. People will be more sympathetic to them. No. So now, example number 2. The guy's on the side of the highway. It's cold. He puts on his safety vest, he starts waving, a guy pulls up. Guy pulls up to help him. Who's the guy that pulls up to help him? It's his ex-partner. Guy used to be his partner. And why aren't they partners today? Because he cheated him on a lot of money. The guy with the vest cheated him on a lot of money, not the guy who stopped. And he caught him, and he said he's not as long partners with a crook, and he broke up the partnership. And he stops, and he's nice to him, and he fixes his car for him, and he gives him a few bucks for gas and everything. So on one hand, yeah, he saved him. But on the other hand, how bad, how hurtful that feels? Like, I stabbed this guy in the back, I stole from him, and he's helping me. He's the one who's nice to me. It's 100 times more painful. That hurts like crazy. Comes to the first Shlomo from Radomsk and says an amazing thing. He says it much longer. I'm cutting it out because we really went overboard over here. The first Shlomo says, you know what goes on? L'cha Hashem hatzdaka, v'lanu boshet hapanim. We come to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and say, a whole year we're busy spitting in your face, doing whatever we want, and what are you doing with us all day? Tzedakah and tzedakah and tzedakah, more chesed and more chesed and more chesed. Giving us and giving us and giving us. The money you give us, we use to spite you, and you give us money anyway. The health you give us, we use to spite you, and you give us health anyway. The car you gave us, we used to spite you, and you gave us a car anyway. The food you gave us, we used to spite you, and you keep on giving us anyway. Just realizing that the one who we spite most is the one who gives us most. L'cha Hashem hatzdaka, when we realize the great kindness that you give us, v'lanu boshet hapanim, that's the biggest busha in the world that a person can have. And on that Chazal say, Brachot, Yudbet Amud Bet, if somebody does, if somebody does a sin and is embarrassed of it, mochalim lo miyad, they forgive him right away. Not only do they forgive him right away, if you look in the Rishonim over there, and there's also a Girsah like that in the Gemara, by the way, they forgive him not only for that sin, they forgive him for all his sins he's ever done his whole life. But what's that bush that comes with the first Shlomo and says that he realizes, what am I doing? I'm throwing rocks in the pit that feeds me the most, that gives me everything, that the only reason why I'm around is because of that? What am I doing? If that's the case, so the Tiferes Shlomo says an amazing thing. Why do we say this in Slichot? Number one, it's of course to be mo'el, to tshuva, that we should realize, stop spitting in the pit that you drink from. It's not nice, it's disgusting. But the Tiferes Shlomo says a chidush that's mind-boggling. Only a genius like him can come up with this. Because a person did a sin. Now he deserves to be punished. Cause and effect, right? Life has consequences, that's the way it is. There's a slang, do the crime, pay the time. It's that simple. And now comes ELUL. He looks back on the past 11 months. And in Yiddish we would say, Ich bin in verhackte Tzoros, I'm in big trouble right now. What's going to be? The past 11 months weren't ay. And now what am I coming to Hashem with? 0. If I'm coming to Hashem with 0, so Rosh Hashanah is not going to be so simple. And Yom Kippur Hashem Yirachem, and then what's going to be next year? Not only that, God has a bill with me. All my traffic violations. On Main Street there's a place, over there that's, I don't know, by the school. That's a school to get a ticket. You drive by, the camera takes a picture of you. Main Street likes people. They take pictures of them all day. And you get in the mail $50. Some people get a few of those a day. Hashem has also cameras all over the world. Just he doesn't send the bill until it's too late, after 120. But the bill is there. It's a din v'cheshbon, it's not a joke. And so what's going to be? And I'm already a third way through ELUL and I don't have an eitzah. What's going to be? Comes to the Tiferes Shlomo and says, walk into shul and manipulate the system. Go to Hashem and say, L'cha Hashem hatzdaka. You do so much kindness to me. V'lanu boshet hapanim. And dafka, because you're so nice to me, that's why I'm embarrassed. If you weren't nice to me, so I would say, you hate me, I hate you, the feelings are mutual. But Hashem, you love me, and you give me, and you do for me, and anyway I went against you. So what's going to be over here? It's terrible. Mani tonenu manomar, I have no case, there's nothing to say anymore. And what's Hashem going to do? He's going to say, to let you get away with it, I can't. So I'm going to punish you. But how am I going to punish you? If what makes you feel uncomfortable is the fact that I'm kind to you, next year I'm going to be double as nice to you. Unbelievable. So instead of somebody getting his averos erased through being sick or through tzoros, he's going to get his averos being erased through being rich and healthy and happy and kids and grandchildren. And like this, he's going to get all his averos being erased. Now you know how to have a miraculous year. Identify that the Rebbeinu Shalom's Av Rachman, Berov Chasadav, who gives us everything. And I don't know how much we always give back. And even if we think we give back, it's not worth going down that road. I'm in the midst of dealing with a very painful situation that's very dear to my heart. There's a gentleman who I know for 22 years, 23 years now already. Went with me once in yeshiva for a little bit. And he went in different ways in the world. Hashem Yirachem, all over. I'm not judging him, And he always used to tell me, I can't do better, I can't, like everything was I can't. Or I already do enough, right? For the past year, he's very sick. And of course, we're fighting to save his life. It makes no difference if somebody's from or not. We have to save everybody's lives. A Jew is a Jew. Fighting non-stop, doctors and this, and money, and time. And I could write a book just what I've been through with this guy in the past year. More than one book, probably a few volumes already. And one day, he comes to me and he tells me that he wants to put on tefillin. I never spoke to him a word about Yiddishkeit since he got sick. I didn't want him to think that I'm manipulating his illness into Judaism. So I gave him my tefillin. I said, I'm not willing to help you. If you want to put it on, do it on your own. No, I don't want to impose Judaism. Put on tefillin. Then he asked me for tzitzis, for this, for that. He had a long list of mitzvahs that he wanted to keep. So I helped him with each thing. I got him. I didn't help him, but I got him everything he wanted. I did whatever he said. And then he tells me, on his own, I didn't ask him. He on his own volunteered the information. You know what made me change? Not that I'm sick, scared of dying, this. I'm not scared of nothing. He said that all my excuses ran out. You would tell me, come learn, I would say I'm busy. But now you tell me, come, there's a doctor that maybe has a new treatment for you, I come running. Isn't that a double standard? You would tell me, give Hashem 5 minutes a day to put on tefillin, I would say I'm in a rush to work. Now it's been a year I didn't go to work because I'm busy going from doctor to doctor. And I have all the time in the world to wait in waiting rooms for 5 hours at a time. You used to tell me, be careful what you eat, it's not kosher, at least eat kosher. I used to tell you it's too much of a pain in the neck. Now I'm on a strict food diet, no salt, no sugar, can't eat bought food from outside, can't, and I stick to it like anything, because I know my life depends on it. So then one day it hit me. So it's not that I can't, it's that I couldn't care less. That's disgusting already. That's why I started keeping mitzvahs. There is nothing that you can't do. You can do. And think about it, everything you wanted to get to in life, more or less you got to, and the rest you'll get to hopefully soon. Or at the right time if it's good for you. It's how much effort or how much sacrifice you're willing to put in to do something or the other. How much effort, how much sacrifice. And Adarabah, that's the chizuk or whatever's left of ELUL. That every day should be a day that's bigger than the day before and better than the day before. And we should really have a great miraculous year with this idea of L'cha Hashem Hatzdaka, and Hashem should help that we shouldn't have to have the part of Boshet HaPanim, Al Yidei Tshuva Shlema V'Mhera, Amen V'Amen.